Hi everybody. It's in your face.
Does it seem like we have a
It
dark
does.
band
What
across
is that going on? Let's I bet this will help. Hang on there a second, folks. Even though none of you are on right now. Let's see if this eliminates.
Looks okay in the camera though.
It
Like we
does?
look okay here.
Oh, okay.
Looks really weird to us, but could just be the shadowing happening from where we're sitting.
Why is that?
Hi, baby.
Hey, Jonathan.
Looks fine here. So.
Yeah, it does actually. You look a little washed out.
I look
actually.
hella washed out.
You're hella washed out.
Anyway,
Anyway,
that's better.
I didn't do anything.
I don't know.
Okay.
Hi. We'll figure it out eventually. You know us.
Just 1 second, folks. Got to respond to a comment here.
About our upcoming rehearsal date for the other show, for the YouTube show. And my phone is acting all kinds of weird all of a sudden.
Okay. So
I
tonight,
ask that.
once
Hi,
again.
Devin.
Hey, Devin. Oh, by the way, Devin.
Oh, jeez, Louise.
We have an 11 o'clock slot open for our Transamorous Network podcast show recording session this weekend. Are you open at 11 o'clock in the morning to come down to the studio so we can interview you and do a follow-up or not? Let us know. All right.
Hi, Mama.
Keep going off the camera there. Tonight.
It's because you've got to turn the opposite direction.
Oh, yeah, it should be like that, huh? It's too late now. Tonight, we are going to be not covering the news. It never ends. We're going to be talking about learning how to see the signs and the homework that you did last weekend. Last week.
I saw the sign, and it opened up my eyes and I...
Anyway, but first, let's see.
You probably don't even know that, do you?
I know that song.
What? Why does that not
saw the
surprise
sign,
me?
And
Are you
open up
surprised
my
that
eyes.
he knew
I
Ace
saw
of
the
Base?
sign.
But he doesn't know it.
But I don't know what.
Just joking.
Okay. So, so what's been going on this weekend? What's been going on this week? So, what's been going on this week, Remy?
With me?
Yeah.
My mom's in town visiting.
Awesome.
She's at the house with Jonathan now, watching live. Hi, Mom.
Oh, hello, Mom.
We took Kendall and the kids, and we all went to the zoo yesterday. And then today we went to the grotto with Grandma, and we've had some nice outings in the sun. We've actually had a nice sunny day weekend here in Portland. First, full weekend, I think, of the year, right?
Yeah, full week.
That's right.
Of sunshine
We're good for a
on the
whole
way now.
week,
Yep.
So.
And
That's been my
yeah,
week.
Good. I've had a good week also that culminated with
Hey, Carson.
there we go. They culminated with the TEDx event in Portland, which was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Very inspiring, yes. And so yeah, it's been a great week. So where's our show?
Zoo was a blast. Thank you for asking. Loved it.
There it is. Okay.
Can't wait to see it, in 2012 after they've done all the construction for there's a couple exhibits that they're working on at the zoo. For
What
like
exhibits?
the monkey exhibits, and it's the only one that comes off the top of my head. I know there are 3 or 4 larger constructions are happening, new habitats for a few animal groupings, and so it'll be exciting to see that when it's all done in 2020.
I'm not a big fan of zoos, ladies and gentlemen. I don't like the idea of animals being caged. I understand that zoos are like a conservator, where they put animals in order to conserve them, but the animals often look sad to me.
So I have some mixed feelings
that?
about zoos. There was a couple we got very sad when we saw the monkeys because they're all in really small enclosures at the moment.
Yeah.
But that's
Oh,
because they're building
right.
this new giant area for them all to live in or whatever.
Yeah.
So when you give and takes, and then when there's another animal, and what the animal is off the top of my head I can't remember. Oh, it was the tiger, and they have a tiger there that has a really great exhibit actually at the moment. I think it's one of the newer, larger exhibits, and how it's basically due to zoos and conservation organizations that have brought them from the brink of extinction.
Well, that's one of the benefits of zoos, right?
Again, there's give and take to all of it.
And hopefully they'll do the same thing with the black rhino, or is it the white rhino?
I think the white one's even more endangered, I think.
One of them has gone extinct already.
Okay.
And so they're trying to return it through some sort of gene stuff. But that's not the subject of this show. Why are we talking about this? Quick advertisement. So for those of you who are really interested in finding out more about this material that we talk about, on May 19th, we're hosting, not the Transamorous Network, but my other company, Positively Focused, is hosting an event called Level Up. And Remy, you have participated in Level Up. In Level Up, we go into deep detail about how this material that we're sharing works, and you can learn the skills in this 6-hour day and learn to apply them in your daily life so that you can ongoingly create the life that you want. The charge for this event is $15. It's on May 19th. That's a Saturday. And if you're interested in attending, make a comment in the comment section and we'll send you the details. In fact, I'll just grab a link and then stick it in the comment section in a little bit if you want to find out more about that event.
Yeah, definitely. It was a lot of fun. It was a great interaction between all the people in the room when I was there, and a lot of fun. You guys should attend.
If you can make it, you should attend because
I sadly will not be able to.
That's quite all right.
I will be at Beltane.
Oh, Beltane. Damn, awesome. So there's the event in case you want to come. It's in the comment section. Let's go ahead and... Any other comments?
Yeah, they have been updating the zoo over the last few years, in stages to better it and upgrade it and make the habitats larger and bigger and stuff.
That's nice.
Answering to Devin's comments.
That's nice. That's nice. So let's talk quickly about the homework that you did last week. So the homework we offered was to identify your intuition. So get into a positive mood through an appreciation exercise, then quiet your mind, and then listen to the thoughts that come after quieting your mind, and see if you can identify the impulses, and then record what you receive. So is there anyone who did that homework?
Oh, Devin, we were asking if you'd be interested in this coming Saturday.
This Saturday at
11 o'clock a.m. We have a slot open if you were interested in coming to re-interview with our other show, with the YouTube show.
Yes, the Transamorous Network podcast and YouTube show. So let us know if you can attend that. The comments aren't coming through on the computer for some reason, but you're coming through there, right?
They're coming through here,
and
they're coming through up there.
Okay,
so.
great. Okay.
Yes, she says.
Oh, great. So we'll put you down, and we'll expect you. You remember where the studio is, and just show up there at 11 o'clock, and we'll get you in the studio, and we'll do a show about you.
Boom.
Boom.
Is she going to be Skyping from the other room, or is she going to be in the room with us? Because
she
might need to bring her computer and those kinds of things.
Do you have a laptop, Devin? Can you bring your laptop and participate via Skype?
She's got a new laptop.
Oh, that's right. Look at you. Bring your laptop with you, okay? Confirm that you got that message in the comment section so we know you're bringing your laptop, and we'll just have you participate in another room, and we'll do it over Skype.
Yes.
Look at. They're just.
I don't know.
I don't know either. Okay, so
technical difficulties.
That's right. Who did the homework? Did anyone do the homework? Who's watching? Oh, we got 18 comments. There we are. Oh, Devin, did you do the homework? It looks like you're saying yes, me.
No, she said that's her response.
Oh, I see. Okay.
To the question.
Okay.
And I did the homework, she says.
Oh, okay, great. So, Devin, what kind of results did you come up with? Did you record the results that you came up with? And if so, what kind of results did you get?
And what was the homework again was?
The homework again was to identify your intuition. So get into a positive mood through an appreciation exercise.
Which was the homework the week before.
That's correct. Is that right? Yeah, that's correct. Yep. That's right.
Before.
That's right. And then...
it was a mess, she says.
Oh, boy. Tell us more about that. How was it a mess? It's interesting that Devin is being very consistent in doing the homework. That's very cool.
I love it.
So we'll just wait and see what Devin has to say about the mess that she created from her exercise.
Or the exercise that was created into a mess.
That's correct. Yes. Yes. In the meantime, let's go ahead and queue up the conversation while we're waiting for her to respond.
We'll private message you the address.
Yeah. We'll private message your address. Okay. So wow, this is the show today is feeling really kind of discombobulated and disjointed. I don't know why that is.
I don't know.
I don't know either. Okay, so the show is... Oh?
I don't know. Technical difficulties, the things are happening.
Of an
it's
internal
a warm
nature.
day. Yeah, there's the internal things happening.
Yeah. Okay, so the headliner today is you got to learn to see the signs, men and everyone else who's watching the show, because it's, as usual, applies to everybody. And
what do you mean?
I was just going to describe that.
By see the signs.
Yes. So people tend to believe that this material... Oh, she just wrote her comment. What's that say?
I did it with my sister, and she was not as willing to be in touch with her intuition, and it turned into a big old fight. But then we turned it around, and she came around, and we had a better afternoon versus the morning.
Why would she be unwilling to be in touch with her intuition?
Some people have stories.
I know. There's one person I know who believes that anything outside of physical reality is a demon. Is that similar to what your sister is experiencing, Devin? I'm really curious to hear that. And while we wait for a response. So, Remy asked a very good question. Many people believe that this stuff doesn't work. She got real frustrated. Oh. Yeah, that's a story.
Yeah, and a small frustration can start putting up the block, which brings in all your old stories and push up more blocks.
And get more frustration.
More frustration, yeah. And then it just becomes...
Yeah, more and more.
More and more frustration.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely possible.
Devin, is she someone who'd be willing to watch this show and participate in our conversations? That would help her if she's interested in really implementing.
Right, she's pagan too. She's just freaking out about money, even though she wanted to spend it on fun things.
Interesting.
What is this?
That's weird.
Stop calling me.
Yeah. Okay, so some people, a lot of people, believe that the material we talk about doesn't work. And I believe that the reason why they believe it doesn't work is because they don't know how to recognize the signs that it's working. That's what I mean.
Okay.
And so it's important, anyone who's trying to recognize that this material works and to use it to their advantage, they first have to understand what the signs are of it working, because the signs at first are really subtle. And so you can't try to use this material, for example, to find your transgender partner and then think that immediately you're going to rendezvous with your ideal transgender partner. You might, but the likelihood of that, because of the momentum of your old stories, isn't very high.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Right.
Right. So you start this off, and again, as we talk about, with the goal of finding your ideal partner, right? Because we can always come back to that. When we fall off, whatever the thoughts, the old stories kick back in, you can always restart back again at that one starting point, which I think was a really great, for me personally, was a great part of this process. And the manuals and the guides was being able to start back at that one specific point, weed through the stories you have fixed already, and then pick up where you left off.
Correct.
You know what I mean?
Correct.
And finding the signs that these things are working can be hard at first.
It can be. And so why is it important that you learn to recognize the signs? Well, because the signs first begin relatively subtly. And it's difficult. If you don't know what to look for in the signs, you will often chalk up the signs of it working as either coincidence or luck, or you'll dismiss it altogether because you won't recognize it as a sign. And then secondly, as you learn what the signs are that you should be looking for, when they happen, it's necessary for you to appreciate or amplify the good feelings associated with the sign. So consciously make yourself feel good about seeing the signs, because that increases your receptivity to future signs. And you can't do what I just said if you don't know what the signs are.
Right.
So
as the first example that comes to my mind is, let's say you're a trans attracted man, and let's say you live in a place where you believe there are no trans women, period. That there just aren't trans women in my town. You start doing this work and you open yourself up to, okay, maybe there are trans women in this town. And then the next day or 2 days later, you actually see someone that you recognize as trans.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
But you believe deeper inside that there are no trans people in your town, even though you've started to give over, you just chalk it up to coincidence.
Yes. Or you think that person, let's just say that
they must be passing through town.
Or let's say you see that person and you think that person's ugly, or she's too old for you, or she's too young for you, or in some way she's not a match to you.
Hey, Jimmy, welcome.
Hey, Jimmy, welcome. That still doesn't, just because, so here's the thing. The signs that you're going to receive initially, it's not like you're going to meet that your perfect match immediately, because you're not a perfect match to that person.
There's that.
So you have to go through indicators indicating that you are moving along the path toward becoming the person that matches the person that you ultimately want to be with. Now,
did you catch all that?
Sorry, I went kind of quick, and it was kind of twisty.
Mm-hmm.
So
simple words.
Yeah,
simple folk.
I thought those were simple words. I even thought they were one syllable words. Okay, I'll say it again. So the signs you get, there's a single syllable word. The signs you
Don't
get
be smartass.
will initially show that you're going down your path toward the person you ultimately want. But they will not indicate an immediate connection with that person, because you are not a match to that person yet. So,
well, there's no way for you to find your ideal person the moment you start this work. You're not ideal.
That's exactly right.
You have not fixed yourself and gotten yourself to where you need to be able to be ready for the type of relationship that your ideal person is going to bring to you.
Right.
Does that make sense?
So that's why, as Remy was saying, and as I added to her comment, if you believe that there are no trans women in your world, and then you start doing this work and you see one in your community, she might show up as 6 years old. And of course, you're not going to be going after that girl. Or she might show up to be 60 years old, and you're like in your 30s. And she might show up to be overweight and like not passable. But the sign there is that there's a trans woman. It's not that she's a match to you. It's that there's a trans woman in your community.
There's the sign.
That's the sign.
That's the sign.
Yes.
That you're wrong. That there are trans women in your part of the world.
Yes. Now, let's just gently correct the language that Remy just said. You're not wrong, because if you believe there are no trans women in your community, you are going to produce evidence that confirms your belief, so you're right. But the minute you start changing your story, you'll start seeing evidence that makes the other story no longer accurate for you, and the new story accurate for you. Right? Right.
Yes.
Okay. So it's important, because you want to be able to recognize that the story you've been telling yourself that's creating the reality where there are no trans women visible to you is just as right as the story you're now beginning to tell that you believe that there are trans women in your community. Because you're going to create whatever reality that's consistent with the stories you're telling, and every reality you create is a right one. So now let's back up the trail of indicators, because there's a really subtle initial indicator that we want to point out that you really have to recognize in order to get to the indicator that Remy identified, which is seeing a trans person in your community. That very first indicator, when you start to change your stories, is a feeling.
You start to feel better.
Yes.
You feel, when telling yourself that new version or new story, maybe it's an edited story, maybe it's a completely new story. But once you tell that to yourself, you feel better. You feel more lighthearted. You feel maybe a little hope. You might feel a giggle. You might feel, some weight off your shoulders.
Yes. You might even feel optimism. You might, not likely, but you might feel a little eagerness to go out and meet that person.
Right, there might be some butterflies.
Yes, that's exactly right. And so let's talk about this feeling, because this is where people often don't recognize this very important initial sign. So we talk about this sign, the feeling, as a physical manifestation in your physical reality. It is a physical manifestation.
Because you're physically feeling it.
Yes.
It's physical.
Your body is experiencing a physical manifestation.
It's not a rock out of the thin air.
Correct. It's not a trans woman showing up.
It's still physical.
It's physical. And that physical response is coming from the story that you've created in your mind. So your story, your mental story, has created the physical response. And that sign, the physical response, you really have to catch. Because catching that, and then, as we said before, amplifying that sign leads you to the next sign. But you won't get the next sign if you don't do the homework that we gave you last week, because from the feeling good position, you're then in a position to receive from your inner being the action that you should take, the impulse that will lead you eventually to the rendezvous of the trans woman who's out there in your community who you thought wasn't out there.
Did you get that?
Say it again.
I think it was done really well, actually.
Okay,
I think
good.
you were right on the flow at that moment.
Okay.
You know, it's all about acknowledging that feeling and giving that moment a little bit of gratitude and maybe riffing, as Perry likes to say, off of that and go, okay, well, you know, maybe there is this, and maybe, you know, there's good things and positive things, and it's out there, and right, and you start to feel more and more and more happy, elation, excitement, anxiety, positive anxiety.
Yes, positive stress, as they call it sometimes.
Right.
Yeah, eustress, they call that. So Remy did a good example of amplifying. I'm going to do another example. So let's say you have this good feeling, like a little bit of hope now, instead of the depression or the despondency you feel when you think the story, there's no trans women in my area, or I need to have a long distance relationship. So now you change your story. You say, maybe there is a trans woman in my area, and then you feel relief.
Joy.
And then you feel relief. So then you might say to yourself, wow, I feel better. Wow, it feels good to feel a little bit better. I did this for myself. I created this better feeling inside myself. And I did that by changing my story. Wow, maybe this stuff does work. Maybe Remy and Perry were right. This feeling, wow, maybe this feeling is going to lead me to the next evidence that trans women exist in my community.
And then in that moment of being open, you might just receive something from your higher self.
Your higher self might say to yourself, go eat at go eat at McDonald's, or go to Walmart, or go put gas in your car, or you forgot that you left something at so-and-so place. And then on your way, you may run into a trans person.
Or whatever.
Or, now here's the thing. Because everything that you want after you get the initial emotional response is going to come from other human beings. That's how the universe works. It works through other human beings. So you might go, let's say you go to 7-Eleven, and you're at 7-Eleven, and you look over and you see this guy or gal, and this guy or gal, for some reason, seems attractive to you. He or she is not attractive because they're physically attractive, like sexually attractive, but they're attracted to you like, maybe you should go talk to that person. If you mustered the courage to go over and talk to that person, just have a casual conversation like, hey, how's it going? How's the weather? That conversation could potentially lead to the revelation that that person knows a trans person.
Or whatever.
Right.
They might be the link or key to the next step, is what he's trying to say.
Thank you, Remy. That's exactly right. We're so good together in that way. You like try to translate my language.
I try my best.
You do a great job.
I was just talking to my mom about this.
You do a great
translating
job.
Perry to English, and English to Perry sometimes.
You do a great job. So that's the thing. And then, so let's get back to Remy's example. So now you're out in the world, you followed your intuition, you followed the signs far enough, so now you see this trans woman. And here's the trouble spot now. This could be a trap. If you see that trans woman and she's 100 pounds overweight, or she's not passable, or she's 8 years old, or
she's not
like
your
that.
ideal.
Yes. And if you see that person and you have one of the following kinds of responses, you're in trouble. If you say, she's ugly, or if you say, well, I would never be with a trans woman like that, or if you say, I can't date that person, she's 8 years old, or if you say, well, that's not my perfect match, she's blah, blah, blah. Or even if you walk away from that person without showing any appreciation for this person as existing as a sign for you, then you've created a connection to a whole different series of future outcomes leading you away from what you're wanting, because you haven't appreciated that person as a sign on the path that's leading you to the person that you're wanting.
Right.
So the opposite reaction the preferable reaction you want to have when you see that 60-year-old trans person who still looks like a guy is, isn't that great? There's a trans woman in my community. That must mean there are more trans women in my community. Or, isn't that great that there's a trans girl in my community? Who cares if she's 8 years old? That means there must be more in my community. This is fantastic.
That's right. Exactly.
This is amazing. Wow. For all my life as a trans-attracted man, I thought there were no trans women here in my community. And look, there's one right there. How amazing that is. And then maybe you want to go home and you want to journal about it. Or you want to get on the Transportive Network or Transportive Brotherhood and talk about it in there. Or you want to come on the show and make a comment about it. You want to just keep riffing the fact that you have changed your reality. And that will lead you to the next impulse, which, if you follow, will lead you to the next sign. Now, last week, we talked about why it's so important to respond to the impulse the moment you get it. Remember that conversation we had?
Yes.
Yes. And do you want to recap why it's important?
It's important to respond to the impulse as soon as you get it, because it's giving you that impulse at that moment for a reason. And if you choose to wait, whatever has happened in that time span between when you got that message and when you take action on that message has now changed your course of action.
Correct.
Your future course of action.
Correct.
Potential actions.
Very well said. That's right. So, but it's not a big deal because your inner being is always guiding you to what you're wanting, and there's like infinite numbers of pathways that lead to what you're wanting. So if you miss one, there's always going to be another. So there's nothing to worry about if you miss it. And the process of learning this, and I think Remy can attest to this, I certainly can, is when you first get an impulse, you may not follow it. The next time you get an impulse, you may not follow it, but then after the fact, you'll realize that you got an impulse and you didn't follow it. The next time you get an impulse, you'll be in the midst of getting the impulse. You'll recognize you're getting the impulse, but you won't follow it, and then you'll notice...
Or you won't follow it right away.
Yes, that's correct.
So you might wait, I got to finish this, and then you follow it, and then you realize that the course of action wasn't the same.
That's correct.
But then the next time, it's all about catching it sooner and sooner, to the point where you get an impulse and you act upon it.
Yes.
That's the goal.
Yes, and then after that, after you catch an impulse, act on it, receive the result, and you're delighted with that amazing result, then you've found yourself in the position where you're anticipating getting impulses because it's like, wow, that was phenomenal. The next one, I can't wait for the next one because the next one's going to be like that, and that was pretty freaking cool.
Takes time to get there. Just saying. Take some comments.
Okay.
Let's see. Jimmy says, sometimes people have an aura about them that kind of attract you to them. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Devin says, I have graduated from quietly pining over the hot guy to keeping little slips of paper with my number and something like call me on it to hang out. I handed out one today. It was a lot of fun.
Awesome.
I think you're saying me. He says, Rila, she just has to introduce me to one of her friends. Hi, Kendall.
Hey, Kendall, welcome. So let's just real quickly talk about Devin's comment, the last part, because she has the right attitude. The attitude is no matter what the outcome is as you practice this work, you have to have the attitude that this is an adventure.
Right.
Like a treasure hunt, like you're having fun. And every experience that you have is getting you that much closer to not the result you want, but the joy that you'll have when the result shows up. Because you don't know, so let's say that I'm a trans-attracted guy and I have a very specific type of trans woman in mind. But my inner being has in mind a different type of trans woman who, if I allow myself to rendezvous with that person, I will have the essence of what I think I want with this ideal person I have in my mind. I'll have the essence of that satisfaction, and it will be better because the person I have in my mind is not necessarily a match to my ultimate desire.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Right.
So I might have, for example, a desire to be with the most beautiful trans woman on the planet. But that trans woman, because this is just hypothetical.
Being relative to the person we're talking about.
Yeah.
We all have different tastes and styles and likes.
Exactly. But this super fine model-like trans woman might be meant characteristic as far as her personality and character is concerned. She might be shallow because of that.
Possibly.
And so that my inner being might instead connect me with a trans woman who has looks that are more like the girl next door.
Right.
Who, because she's more average looking, has a much more developed character. And as we all know, when we think about it, a person's personality or character is much more, the type of character or personality one has is much more conducive to a healthy relationship than how they look.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
Okay, so.
Because looks fade.
Looks fade.
Or disappear altogether from accidents or whatever.
That's exactly right.
All it takes is one battery mistake, and shit
it's
happens.
True. No, that's right.
A slice, a cut,
Yep.
and a car,
or a bicycle accident where she lands on her face or something like that.
Hot grits, it's all possible.
Exactly. Hot grits. Yeah. So this is the thing, right? So you have to recognize that your
good old gravity,
good gravity.
Boom, boom.
So you have to recognize that your inner being knows better than you know what it is that you're wanting. Because the stories you have are, a lot of the times, the stories that you have are dictating the desires you have. And oftentimes, the stories you have aren't matched up to your ultimate satisfaction.
Right.
Right. So, for example, there's a guy who is 60 years old who wrote a comment on our YouTube channel the day before yesterday. And he said, is there any chance for me since I'm 60 years old? And the answer is, of course there's a chance for you to find a trans woman at that age. But
absolutely.
And you could even find a trans woman, depending on who you are and what your status is in the world, who is 20 years old and have a satisfactory relationship with that person. But the likelihood is that a 60-year-old guy is probably going to be matched up by his inner being with a trans woman who is around that age.
Or within 20 years.
Yeah, around that age. Because the satisfaction that could occur in that relationship is much greater than having a 60-year-old.
And more deeply fulfilling.
That's exactly right. And so what the guy would have to do is...
Because again, the universe knows better than you do.
Yes.
What's best for you.
Yes. So the guy, the 60-year-old, has to change his story expectation about the type of trans woman he's trying to get with. Does this make sense? You got a comment?
Yes.
Throw them comments.
Devin says, I know a trans woman in New Jersey who is in her 60s who just jonesing for the dick. So yeah, he has his chance.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why y'all talking about old folks?
What's so funny? Why y'all talking about? Oh,
he's taking it personal.
Well, I don't know why. I'm talking about some guy on YouTube. So it's a great example, though. It's a great example, and we all have expectations about the person we want to meet that are often not a match to our satisfaction. And because of that, because we're not a match to our satisfaction, we don't get connected to the relationships that match our satisfaction.
Right.
We get connected with relationships that match our stories.
Which is why many of us have stories that relate around sex, and all they bring us is people who are hookups.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So if there's a guy in the Transamorous Network who believes that all his relationships with trans women are disappointing, and so what do you think his experiences with trans women are? They're disappointing.
Highly disappointing.
Highly disappointing. And oftentimes those relationships don't even get off the ground because he brings such a story full of lack that confirms for himself in his reality experience with the trans woman that relationships aren't fulfilling. So this is gold, you guys, that we're offering to you, this approach to recognizing the signs. And it's worth going back and listening to this episode again because we're telling you exactly how, not just to get the relationship you want, but everything you want.
The life
you want. Fulfill the dreams you want, the job you want, the money you want, everything that you want can be realized through this process. Any other comments? Watch an episode of The Golden Girls. Okay, I don't think we have anything else to share.
No?
Are we good to go?
You're triggered, Troy. Don't be so sensitive. What's the matter, babe?
Oh my goodness, dude. Okay, so let's see. What's some homework? Okay, so here's some homework. As you move through your day the rest of this week, look at your life experience and see if you can match the experiences you're having to stories that you're telling yourself. because your life experience is constantly giving you indicators of the stories that you're telling yourself. So be on the lookout for the things that you experience in your life experience and see if you can match them to stories that you're telling yourself. Write them down and then come back and share them with us next week. That's it.
All right.
Okay, guys. Take care and see you next week.
Ciao.
Bye.